Welcome, everybody, to the STEP Central webinar, Increasing Graduation and Transfer Rates of Two-Year College STEM Students Through Two-Year, Four-Year Partnerships. It is presented by Dr. Pamela Leggett-Robinson, who is a principal investigator on an NSF STEP grant at Georgia Perimeter College and also the Science Department Chair. And we're also joined here by Dr. Kelly Mack, who is the Vice President for Undergraduate STEM Education and Executive Director of Project Kaleidoscope at the Association of American Colleges and Universities. Before we get going, I wanted to give you a brief introduction to STEP Central very quickly. STEP Central was originally developed as a community of practice for NSF STEP grantees. So STEP Talent Enhancement Program is a grant at NSF for improving STEM recruitment and retention. So this website and other various tools was developed to improve collaboration and coordination among STEP grantees, but also anyone interested in improving STEM undergraduate education. There's a growing database of resources that are added and curated by our members. You can join a working group, and members can even add their own working group to support your local or regional initiatives. We have a working group on 2-year, 4-year partnerships, and within this working group is where you'll be able to find this webinar, a recording when it's ready, and also make any comments or feedback on this webinar or make suggestions about 2-year, 4-year partnerships. We also have blogs and events and news available for the STEP community. And anybody can access the resources, but in order to make comments, join a working group or start a working group or add resources, you need to become a member. To do that, you can click the login button and then just fill out this new membership form here. So if you're not a member of STEP Central, I encourage you to go ahead and join if this seems like the kind of community that you're interested in engaging with. Okay, so there's my plug for STEP Central. And now I'm very excited to move on with the presentation. Dr. Pamela Leggett-Robinson will be presenting on her outstanding work and value perspectives on increasing transfer rates. But first we have a special guest, Dr. Kelly Mack, who has an exciting announcement for all of you regarding the growth of STEP Central. Kelly?
Thank you, Tanya, and good afternoon to everybody. I am really excited about our webinar this afternoon, and thank you to Pamela for leading this session for us. We're very excited here at AAC&U to announce that STEP Central is expanding, and it is expanding to include the Project Kaleidoscope community, which now is about 7,000 STEM faculty strong and growing every day. We are excited because this particular relationship brings together two robust communities with the same goal of increasing the number of graduates in the STEM disciplines who are both competitively trained and also liberally educated. And so I want to echo Tanya's remarks and sentiments about encouraging everybody to join STEP Central, which will soon be STEM Central for higher education. We'd love for you to be a part of working groups that already exist and even to create new working groups, particularly for the PCAL community. And specifically, I'm thinking about our regional networks, and I'm thinking about our Summer Leadership Institutes and using this website to promote all of the great work that you do. We hope that you will take advantage of the blogs and even upload some of your own work to be used as a resource for all STEM faculty across the whole country. We know from our recent NSF data that there are 268,000 STEM faculty in this country, and it's our goal to in some way touch each and every one of them with all of the cutting edge resources and knowledge and research that we have about recruiting, retaining, and graduating students in the STEM disciplines. So I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I'm really excited to hear Pamela's talk again. Welcome to the STEP Central webinar. We're very pleased that you've joined us, and thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, wonderful. So now I'm going to pass the screen over to Pamela while I introduce her to you all in more detail. So let's see if this works. Pamela, here you go. You should be able to share your screen. And it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Pamela today. She is a native of Decatur, Georgia. Shows you I'm not from Georgia. And the product of the DeKalb County school system. She earned a BS in chemistry from Georgia State University and an MS in inorganic chemistry from Tennessee Technological University, and a PhD in physical organic chemistry from Georgia State University. Currently, Dr. Leggett-Robinson is enjoying the challenges of being Science Department Chair on the Decatur campus of Georgia Perimeter College. She teaches one class per year, which is organic chemistry, and remains an active member of the American Chemical Society on both the national and regional levels. She's a PI of NSF STEP grant and loves developing and implementing programs that, quote unquote, develop students so they reach their maximum potential in STEM. Dr. Leggett-Robinson has received awards and honors for scholastic achievement and service to her community, and has received external funding from NSF and NIH, both in science research and science education. She published in Polymer, the Journal of Undergraduate Chemical Research, Hydrocyclic Communications, and The Chemical Educator. She has made numerous presentations, both national and regional scientific meetings. Dr. Leggett-Robinson continues to hold firm to her belief, and this is a quote, "Chemistry is the central science that drives the daily phenomenon of our lives, and the love of science must start at this grassroots level. We as STEM professionals need to expose the youth to the many possibilities of a rewarding career in STEM." And because of this belief, she is a strong advocate for STEM programs in higher education. She spends time in Washington, D.C., lobbying for increases in science funding, and mentors African-American young college women in sciences. With all these accomplishments, she is happiest when she is teaching organic chemistry and making it come alive for students through relationship analogies and speaking to college students about the road less traveled, which is being an African-American woman with a PhD in chemistry. Her students fondly refer to her as Dr. Rob, and she gives thanks every day for the opportunity to contribute to the diversity of STEM through her students' accomplishments and accolades. And with that introduction, I'm very excited to pass the microphone over to Dr. Rob, Dr. Pamela Leggett-Robinson. Thank you so much. And during your presentation, I'm going to close my webcam. So I'll be here. Thank you.
Tanya, can you see it? Can you see the presentation? Can everybody see it?
Yes, I can see it, but you need to change to your other screen.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right. I'll be here in the background, and call me if you need anything.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Rob. You can call me Pamela. That's fine. The first thing, though, I think, Tanya, we have a poll question, so we can just see who's on the webinar from the 2-year or 4-year institution. So if you can go ahead and put that in, and we'll go back to that one. But I want to go ahead and get started. So let's just talk a bit about the state of STEM undergraduate education. I do work at a community college, a 2-year college, and we do know that it plays a significant role in undergraduate education. We also know that they serve a significant proportion of underrepresented minorities. And about 50% of all college students that are minorities start at the community college and then look to transfer to the 4-year institution, but very few minorities actually make it to the 4-year institution. And when they get there, oftentimes they don't matriculate. So we then know that partnerships between 2- and 4-year institutions are essential mechanisms to facilitate and increase the number of transfer students. And so that we also want to make sure that these types of partnerships are also in place so that not only when the students get to the four-year institutions, they can obtain their bachelor's degree. So today we're going to focus on the importance and the impact of these partnerships to STEM graduation and transfer rates. And we want to look at it from both perspectives. Oftentimes when we think about a partnership, unfortunately, with two-year, four-year partnerships, we only think about it from one side. So today we want to look at both sides. And we also want to think about developing and implementing and sustaining mutually beneficial partnerships, because that's the key there. They have to be mutually beneficial. So there's a lot of things that we can probably think about and discuss why it's important or what the impact of the two-year, four-year partnerships. I could probably give you a list just from my own personal background, but I thought it would be better if we actually got the information from STEP Central, from one of our webinars that we had done. And so these are some of the comments that people said that were actually engaged in a two-year, four-year partnership. They talked about enhanced recruitment of women students and students of color. They talked about the transfer rates after 2 years, how it was much better once they had the partnership. They talked about how there was a direct correlation with the two-year degree completion and transfer to partner institutions. Co-curricular coordination between the STEM programs at the two institutions. They were able to establish relationships between administrators at the two-year institutions, which is key. And then they had a deeper understanding of the issues that transfer students face. So all of those, and as I said, we could probably list about 100 more, go to the importance and the impact of these two-year, four-year partnerships. So as I said, typically when we think about a two-year, four-year partnership, we usually think about what does it look like on the side of the four-year. But I'm going to give you a different perspective. I am at Georgia Perimeter College. We are a non-residential two-year program with 5 campuses located around the metro Atlanta area, and we have 1 online division. This past fall, we had an enrollment of 21,000, and we are the 3rd largest institution in the system, the USG system, which is the state of Georgia system, University System of Georgia, and we're the largest associate degree granting institution in the state. And so I've given you some demographics about what our population tends to look like. You see, we have more female students and male students, but if you look, our STEM students are still predominantly male. So we still have the same issues that most of you out there have. So as Tanya mentioned, we were the recipient for an NSF STEP award, and it was a really good thing. We are one of the few two-year institutions that did not have partners. We were the lead institution and the only institution on the grant, and so the grant has allowed us an opportunity to develop partnerships. So if you look at the graph, you can see the partnerships that were formed during the GPC STEP, and we are in year 4. And so as you can see, the number of our four-year institutional partners has grown significantly from the time we started. I'm looking forward to the numbers for this year. I'm hoping we can get to at least 12 or 13, but it does take some work. And our university partners host three main activities. We work together, 3 main activities. One, we do provide transfer workshops, and that was something that had been ongoing prior to GPC STEP. But our 2 signature programs were that we host a day in the life activities, and that we provide undergraduate research experiences. So those are the 2 signature programs that I'm going to talk mainly about today.
Hey, Pamela, we have
the first partnership.
Question. Yes. Sorry to interrupt you, but we have a question here. Craig Ogilvy asks, how are you defining STEP at a 2-year? How are you defining STEM at a 2-year institution?
Oh, good question. Students come in and they have to declare their major, and they have to enroll the first semester in at least college algebra. The second semester, they must enroll at in pre-calculus and chemistry 1211, which is general chemistry. So they have to have a semester. They have to be enrolled with 1 semester of math in order to declare as being a STEM major.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So the first partnership that we did was called the Day in the Life activity. And this was very similar to what most of your institutions already have, a college tour. And so this is a little different, simply because we started thinking about some different things we could do. And so here, the students at GPC go over to our sister institutions, and they are actually students for a day. They attend junior level classes in the area of their intended major. You can see the agenda over there. And then when they come back, which is usually a blow to their egos, by the way, because typically our classes are 24 to 35 people in the class, and these are very, very good students. But when they're sitting in a class of 250, their egos tend to shrink just a tad. So after they attend class, they go and we have lunch. There's an advising session, and there's a student transfer panel. This is probably my favorite part of the day, because this is the opportunity where the students get to ask the other students that have previously transferred from GPC or another institution about their level of expectations that they had and just what it was like when they got there. So they really talk about the transfer shock. The room is set up so that, and I don't want to say adults, but so the faculty that are participating sit in the back. We do not ask any questions during that time. And it is a rule, kind of like Vegas, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, whatever questions are asked in that room, the answers stay in that room, because oftentimes the students are asking very, very candid questions, and sometimes they don't want those questions talked about outside of that place. So we have an evaluator that comes in, and for every activity that we do, there is an evaluation. And so for last year, we had about 7 tours. And so this was just kind of a summation of the tours that we had. We have these constructs that are there the whole time. For every activity, these are the constructs that we look at. We look at engagement, we look at institutional commitment, STEM identity and belonging, math and science, awareness of resources, encouragement, and intent to persist. And so there's a couple of things that for this particular activity that we really focus on. We focus on number 2, I am more committed to completing a degree at GPC. We also look at I felt more encouraged to get a STEM degree. That's number 9. And number 11, I am more likely to transfer to 4-year institutions, because we're trying to see if this is a good way to kind of predict whether or not the students will move on and persist and transfer. So if you notice, number 2 is the one that we always have to pay attention to. In this particular year, we had a lot of tours to places that really focused on engineering. And so with our engineering program here at GPC, the students are more encouraged to transfer instead of obtaining the degree. So they go through what's called a Regents transfer agreement between Georgia Perimeter College and another institution, and it is specific for engineers. So that's one of the reasons this particular area is a little lower than some of the other ones. So our next partnership program is called the +8 program. And this is my favorite. It's my baby. I just love it. And it's based on an undergraduate research model. It's actually called the 3+8 model, but we just shortened it to the +8. And it's a cognitive apprenticeship program. Students participate for the first 3 weeks at Georgia Perimeter College on campus in one of the teaching labs. They are paired in groups. Well, they're placed in groups with about 5 or 6 students, and they're working with a faculty member from Georgia Perimeter College. It's only for about 3 weeks in May. They go half days, so it's Monday through Thursday, and they usually work from 8 to 12 or 9 to 1, whatever their research advisor is going to do. And then at the end of the 3 weeks, they have to make a formal presentation and prepare a poster. The oral presentation is a group presentation. And so each person in the group has, a requisite time period to present whatever portion they did. Then the students move to the 8-week period, and that's at another 4. That's at a 4-year institution. It's a less structured approach. Students are in individual research labs, and we've only had one occasion where we put 2 GPC students in the same lab. Other than that, they are working away from their GPC colleagues. They're still working a half day. And the half days are just kind of broken up, but they cannot work any more than 25 hours per week. This program was designed specifically this way because two-year students tend to have a lot of family and work obligations, and oftentimes they hesitate with going to do an REU because of their family and work obligations. So this is a really, really good way of getting their feet wet. And in the research groups, they also work with the graduate students and maybe some other undergraduate researchers from that institution. So these are the partners that we had over the period of time. So for the first summer, we only had one institution that was willing to work with us, and that was Georgia State. And then the next year we had two, and then the last year we had Georgia State and Emory, UGA Griffin, and Georgia Tech. So as you can see, there are more and more schools that want to be involved. I chose, you can see all the different pictures around, but I really wanted to highlight these pictures because each of these students has transferred to a four-year institution and is still engaged in undergraduate research. So starting from the left at the top, that is Greg, and he's at Georgia State University, and he works in a biochemistry lab. That is Quan at the bottom left-hand side, and he's over at Georgia Tech, and he's majoring in engineering. This is Lydia at the top right, and she's over at Georgia State in chemistry. And Bao is at the bottom, and she is over at Georgia State University. And she's actually graduating this December and applying for medical school and to obtain her master's. She's not sure which one she wants to do. And just for the record, Bao was one of our first students. She was in the 2012 class. Quan was in the 2012 class, and Greg and Lydia were both in the 2013.
Hey, Pamela. Sorry to interrupt you. This is Tanya, but we have a question here from Jana Jacobs. She asks, are students earning any credit for the 8-week research component at the four-year institution?
No, they are not earning any credit, but they do receive a hefty stipend.
And then there's also another question here. Are students doing, from Peggy Shattuck, are students doing this after their first or their second year at the community college?
Either or. It depends on the student. We prefer the students to do it after their first year. That way it gives them time for the next summer as a rising junior to do an REU.
Thank you.
So this slide is kind of busy, but I just wanted to give you some insight about the different types of projects that the students are working on. And this is from the first 2 years. So you see the 3-week project, and then you see that it's more defined in the 8-week project. You also see that sometimes there is a difference in the project that they work on in 3 weeks and the 8 weeks in terms of the discipline that it's in. So you notice that maybe an engineering student may work on a physics project and then work on a chemistry project. So we really try to match the student and the 8-week project with we look at their major, but we also look at the coursework, and we also look at the research itself. And so once again, here are some survey results that the students had. And if you notice, we're still looking at pretty much the same constructs. If you look at number 2 for this particular activity, the students are doing very well. There's nothing that we need to pay attention to. So this activity actually helps them to be more committed to completing a degree at GPC than actually the day in the life, even with the engineers that are participating in the +8. Also, the students are more likely, looks like they're more likely to transfer, they're more likely to pursue other research experiences, and they're more encouraged to get a STEM degree. So some of the outcomes, other than students feeling good and having really, really good numbers, we wanted to look at what does this really, really mean? Have we reached our project goals? So over to the the sides there where it says project goal and the summer bridge 1 and 2, we can look at what we kind of anticipated. So we set ourselves with a goal of 30 students that would participate in summer bridge 3, and then we have that number for summer bridge 2, which is the 8 weeks. We did that because we knew that there was going to be a few students that maybe just didn't feel really, really comfortable about going over and spending 8 weeks at an institution. But as you can see, the numbers are relatively good. It has increased. The first year, no one really wanted to engage, so we had about 4 students. But the next year, we doubled that, and then this particular summer 14, we had 11 students. Something that we've also done from summer 13 to summer 14, we made it a little bit more challenging to get into the program. So students had to not only have a certain GPA to participate in summer research, but we had to make sure that they had the requisite courses to participate. So when we talked to the PIs from the other institutions, we asked them for a list of courses that they wanted the students to have prior to coming into their lab. So that was another reason that the numbers probably didn't double. Some of the things that we also looked at were the student activities following the +8 participation. So students presented at conferences, and we try to mandate that, but we know that we can't because students have schedules. But if you notice, those numbers are relatively high. So we also looked at the number of students who participated in an REU program the following summer. And that was key for us because we wanted to make sure that the students had a skill set that was transferable to do a real REU program. And our students have gone on and done REU programs at Case Western, University of Florida, as well as MIT. So we're very proud of them. We also looked at the number of students who transferred or graduated to a 4-year institution directly following that 3+8. And so you see the numbers are good there. But what seems to be getting kind of lost in translation is the students that transferred to the institution where they participated. So we talked about the institutions that participated: Emory, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, UGA Griffin. But you notice that the students aren't necessarily transferring over to those institutions. In fact, those 3 students that are listed there, all of them transferred to Georgia State University. So we're hoping as the program continues to grow, we'll have more students that want to go to other institutions that participate in the +8 program. We also have a great number of students that participate in the +8 program that upon transfer, they still continue to participate in undergraduate research.
Pamela, we have a few questions. Is now a good time to take a few questions?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Just so they don't pile up too much, we will, everyone, just so you know, have some time at the end to address more questions. So if we don't get to your question now, then we'll definitely address it at the end. But here we have a question from Mary Jo. I think it's cutting off her name. I think it's Mary Jo. Mary Jo Daniel. Who develops the idea for the project, the student or a faculty member?
The faculty members on both sides of the house, at both institutions. We ask the faculty members to come up with projects that the students can work on.
Great. Then Michelle Hamlet asks, was it challenging to find labs that would take students who work part-time? Are the students able to have a productive research experience?
I'm over here laughing. Yes. Oh my gosh, it was the hardest thing to do. And I'm so thankful for Georgia State because they understood the vision. But once institutions started seeing the product that was the finished product of the students, then it's been a lot easier to get more students and more institutions on board. You just have to explain that these students are willing to work, but because they have family obligations, oftentimes it's just a little bit more difficult. So the projects that they work on are not going to be full-fledged REU projects. They're probably a component of someone's REU project.
Okay, thank you. Craig Ogilvy asks, have you used the SURE survey from Grinnell as well? And,
I have not.
Okay, I'm not sure which survey that is. Maybe Craig could
Yes,
Add more
could he
detail.
send it to me? Send me the link?
Yeah, maybe if you could put the link in as into the question box, we can take a look at that.
Yeah, that would be good.
And then Sharon Anderson asks, what was the funding source? Did the four-year colleges provide their own funding?
The funding source is mixed. The funding source for the four-year institutions is for the faculty. So the faculty receive $500 for taking in a student for their materials and supplies. But the funding source for the students comes from the STEP grant.
Okay. Great. And then let's take one more question from Eric Wessinger. I am required to teach fall, spring, and summer semesters. Do you have any suggestions on how to work in a bridge program for someone that instructs year-round?
Wow. No, let me think about that, because we have May off. So our faculty do not teach in May. And so that's why this works out so well. Maybe you could ask for time release of one of your classes. And then that might work. If you're teaching 2 classes in the summer, then maybe ask for a time release to do undergraduate research. That might work.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd have to really think about that one with year-round.
Yeah, and maybe
That's
that could
tough.
be a kind of a discussion topic we could put in the working group on Step Central.
Yes.
If other people have ideas or suggestions on how to build that in when you're working, when you don't really have a break during the year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Craig Ogilville shared the link, so I'm going to go ahead and put that up so people
Okay.
can see that and take a look at that when you have time. But let's close the question answer for a little while and let you get back to your presentation.
Okay. So we can look at the impact of the partnerships on graduation and transfer. But I do want you to keep in mind that even though I have shared just a snippet of the project, there are other things that the students do that I think aid with their graduation and transfer rates. But I just kind of wanted to touch on the main programs. And so if we look at the numbers, we can see that the GPC graduation in a STEM major, when we look at the academic year 2012 and 2013, you can see there's some differences. Obviously, there was more students that we had in 2013 than 2012, but still the graduation rate has increased. Not a whole lot, but it still has increased. And we say that part of that reason is the best practices that have been put in place. And part of the best practices are, going to these day in the life tours and participating in undergraduate research. And so if we look at the table, we can see that the graduation and transfer rate, we're supposed to, when we wrote the grant, we said we wanted to have it at 55%. And so the first year is at 29. The second year it went to 42. But last year we were up at 66%. And so we have really made a concerted effort to inform students and have them participate in these programs so that they can have a one-on-one experience with the sister institution, get to know the people that are there, and just get a really good feeling of whether or not this is a good fit for you. We can also look at the transfer institutions that the students have decided to go to, and you notice that list has grown tremendously. And I'm sure I've left off a few places, but you notice that they're beginning to move out of their comfort box, comfort zone of just UGA and Georgia Tech. There's now Emory. We're looking at Clayton State. There's also Texas Tech, Texas A&M, at College Station, Georgia Gwinnett, Southern Poly, and we had a student that transferred this fall to Dartmouth. One of the faculty members had something to say that I thought was really, really nice. He has been an advocate for the program, and actually he started with us at the beginning. And he said one of the 2 students transferred to his research group, and this was in 2012. following his +8 experience. He's currently working on his own research project in my research group, and we submitted a manuscript for publication, and it's to biochemistry. And he presented the work of his results this past summer, and he's now working on his master's. So instead of just doing the 4-year program, he did the bachelor's +1. So he's working on his master's as we speak. And this young man also works with the +8 students that come over every semester. The same faculty member invites students to come over and volunteer in his lab during the academic year. And they have small projects, just to kind of get their feet wet with what it may look like to transfer to Georgia State in that following semester. So people often ask me, how did the partnerships get started? Well, they're crazy stories. Things just kind of happened to me. But the day in the life was actually started from a Procter & Gamble grant with Georgia Tech. Somebody called me and said, hey, you want to write one with me? And I said, sure, let's talk about visitation days. And this was right before the STEP grant. So this wasn't even included in the STEP grant. And so we wrote it, and it was funded. We started doing a comparison of evaluation data between the transfer students. And so that's kind of how the day in the life came to be. The +8 program was a different story altogether. Actually, this was birthed at a PCAST Summer Institute that I attended. And I wanted to do more undergraduate research with 2-year college students. And I talked to a young man, a PhD from Pepperdine, and I asked him would he be interested in taking one of our students. And he told me point blank, no. Your students don't have enough research experience to come out to Pepperdine and work. And I asked him what would it take, and he's like, they would need to have about 10 to 11 weeks of undergraduate research. And so voila, that's how the +8 program kind of came to be. And then I just used all the tools that I knew about fundraising, and I went to an undergraduate research poster day at Georgia State, and I started asking, would you be willing to? Would you be willing to? So I kind of used a couple of things there to get those started. So why are the partnerships successful at GPC? I mean, these are things that you can think about at your own institution. Why are your partnerships successful or unsuccessful? Well, they're successful at GPC, one, because of just the demographics of the students, and just the sheer fact that we are the largest population of 2-year students in the state. So when people see us coming, they kind of want our students because that helps them with their recruitment and their transfer. And we couple the partnerships with the best practices in other areas. So there's intrusive advising, there's recruitment from high schools, there's just one-on-one things that we do. We make sure that there's faculty communication and participation, course alignment. We make sure that there's stakeholder buy-in, more so on the 4-year side than the 2-year side, because that's the side that we really have to get our teeth in. We understand the differences in the cultures and the processes on both sides of the house. We make sure that we support the activities with staff and counselors. STEP has the best administrative assistant known to man, so that's been a great thing. And the PI or the designee has to be visionary. So you have to have a skill set that surpasses just, I think, just a regular PI. So you have to be able to fundraise, see things from a global perspective, and just understand the culture. And you have to kind of be on the cutting edge of things. So we didn't know about the new funding calculation, but our programs actually spoke to the new funding calculation. So before, we were receiving funds from the state for recruitment, and now it's with retention. So that kind of helped tremendously. So I have 2 poll questions, Tanya. I like the people participating to answer the 2 poll questions. So I just kind of want to know if they're engaged in a partnership and if the partnerships are mutually beneficial.
Okay, I launched the poll, so everyone should be able to select their answer, and
Okay.
we can track how many people have selected, so we can know when to close it. So far, 68%
Okay.
have voted. So we'll let it get up to maybe 85 or 90, or when it just levels off.
Okay.
Okay, we've been at 75 for a couple seconds now, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. 75% of the audience has voted, and I will share the results. Are you able to see those results? Pamela?
No, I'm not, because I'd have to go to another screen.
Oh, okay. Well, 70% said yes, and 23% said no, and 7% said I don't know. So,
Wow.
like, quite a lot of you are engaged in 2-year, 4-year partnerships.
But they're not mutually beneficial.
Well, let's
Okay.
see. I need to ask that one next. So I'm
Okay.
going to launch that. Now that you've answered that question, why don't you, everyone who is engaged in a 2-year, 4-year partnership, indicate whether or not they're mutually beneficial. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Quick, launch your vote really quick. Last chance. All right. Close the poll. And I'll share the results. And I'm not sure if you can see it, Pamela, on your screen, but 49% of our audience thought that yes, they were mutually beneficial. And 22% said no. And amongst those 22%, they are split evenly in that half of them thought the 4-year institution benefited more and half of them thought the 2-year institution benefited more.
Oh, wow.
And then 30% didn't know, said I don't know.
That's good. That's really good information. And so, so that being said, I'll talk a little bit about mutually beneficial, but partnerships. But these are just some of the key factors in developing those 2-year partnerships. And so, obviously, the open communication, it has to be outcome driven. You have to have a goal set in mind, not just that it feels good. The partnership has to be logistically sound. So, okay, we're going to do this at this time. We're going to track these students. We're going to evaluate. The personnel has to be on board from both institutions. And it has to be something that you've either revamped, redesigned, or it's innovative. But since I'm really, that with the mutually beneficial is kind of interesting to me. And that tends to be the problem because one side of the house tends to feel that the other one is reaping all the benefits. So when you begin to develop your 2-year, 4-year partnership, you really have to look at what is mutually beneficial for both. So for GPC, one of the things that's mutually beneficial is retention on both of our parts. So we have to make sure that because of our funding calculation, that our students are coming in, getting what they need, we're retaining them, and then they graduate. But also when they transfer over to the 4-year institution, those institutions have to make sure that those students are being retained and they're graduating. So then it becomes more of a holistic partnership, if you will, because we want to make sure that the 2-year institution is giving the student what they need, and that when the student transfers over to the 4-year institution, they're being able to use what they know and move forward. So when we talk about redesign, and this is something that can also go to the mutually beneficial. So we redesigned the college tour. So we thought about what it should look like. What is it based on? What do 2-year college students need to know prior to transferring? And why are the tours important? And are they important? And so this still goes back to being mutually beneficial. So students need to know certain things prior to transferring, because you need students to transfer, to recruit, and to retain. So we looked at some of the concerns from the 2-year students, and then we began to customize the tours at the 4-year institutions to address the concerns. We met with admissions, advisings, and STEM offices and let them know, hey, these 2-year students are concerned about financial aid. They're concerned about housing. They're concerned about classroom size. They're concerned about are they going to fit in? They're concerned about is there going to be an inequity between students that are here already and me? What does the racial profile look like, the demographics? Am I going to be the only African American in the class? Am I going to be the only female in my engineering class? And so those are things that we kind of took into consideration, and we began to logistically plan the event. But once we got the event planned and we participated in it, then it's a constant evaluation. And so when we evaluate it, we're looking at it from a student's perspective, but we're also looking at it from a 2-year perspective. Are we showing the students where they need to go? what it's going to look like over there, and then the four-year institution evaluates the program. Are we giving the students what they need to know prior to transferring? Are we putting our best foot forward? When we look at the Plus 8 program, we just simply redesigned the REU, but we also based it on an existing program. So the traditional REU is 8 to 10, 11 weeks, and so we said, well, our students really aren't prepared for that quite yet, but we do have a three-week program that was already here at GPC, and so we took that 3-week program and we just simply expanded it. We looked at the previous data. We saw that the students seemed to do a little bit better in their classroom and when they transferred, but we also knew that we needed to engage more students. So we looked at the current program, we evaluated it, then we decided to customize the program at a 4-year college to meet the needs of the 2-year institutions. So I'm sure someone's going to ask the question, well, then how is that mutually beneficial to the 4-year institution? Well, let me tell you how, because now you're getting first dibs on that student. You're showing that student your research lab. You're spending time with that student. You're kind of cultivating that relationship. So then when it's time to get to the next step, when it's time to actually transfer, more than likely that student is going to go there. So we have had some different things going on, and I showed you back in a few slides ago, we've only had students that transferred to Georgia State, those 3 students, and we've actually evaluated that as well. Students tend to come to GPC with a preconceived notion of where they're going to go. And so if we don't get in enough time, students kind of decide, well, I want to go to UGA or I want to go to Tech, and that's the end-all, the be-all. So we try to give them some different experiences to change their mind. So that's how it becomes mutually beneficial. We meet with the research advisors. Once again, it's logistical planning, and then we evaluate the program every year. Tanya, I have some more poll questions.
Okay.
Let's do the yes and no first. Well, I guess we have to do.
Well,
yeah.
I have not entered these polls into the
Okay.
program, so
All right. Well,
I can go ahead and do that if you want, and I'll let you know when they're ready, because I just need a second.
Okay. Or is there someone that can share a successful partnership program that they may be engaged in?
Oh yeah, if someone wants to raise their hand and briefly describe that out loud or type it,
that's fine.
That would be good. And also, we can also do a quick hand raise about the second one. So yeah, raise your hand if you'd like to, if you have a successful partnership program that you'd like to share briefly about.
I know we're kind of.
Or you can type it in if you're shy.
I know we're getting kind of tough on time there, so.
Right. Let's see. People might be typing it in the question box. How about in the meantime?
Okay.
Here we go. Craig Ogilvie has an 8-week research program. He shared the link.
Okay.
That we can share with people. So I'm going to go ahead and send that out so people can see the link. And we can also add a lot of these comments and links and resources to our working group for this webinar, so everyone can access the information there. And maybe while we're waiting for people to, oh wait, we have some hands up.
Oh.
So let's go ahead and unmute Joseph Scrivenek and see if this works without any sound. Joseph.
Yes. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good. Good. Well, we've had a long-standing program at Purchase College, part of the State University of New York system, and we work in conjunction with 6 SUNY community colleges. And we started all the way back in 2001 was our first summer.
Wow.
And it was with a Bridges to the Baccalaureate grant from NIH. And that grant has continued. In fact, it was just recently refunded for another 5 years. But along the way, we have expanded the Bridges program with an NSF STEP grant and also with some foundation money, particularly the PepsiCo Foundation. And so we probably have had now in all of the programs probably about 500 students through the program.
Wow.
And about 75% of them are finishing their 2-year degree, and about 70% of those are finishing their 4-year degree, and about 35 to 40% are actually going on to postgraduate work.
Thank you. That's good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Wonderful. Go ahead and mute you now. Anybody else? We have had some people make some comments that there's a community college. Cheryl Kiras has a community college day for engineering and computer science students at UMass Amherst. And let's see, Craig Ogilvie also shared his program.
Okay.
And while we're waiting for more possible comments, there is a question here that came in a few minutes ago from Joan Essen. She asks, how do you plan on continuing the program after the lifetime of the grant?
Which program? Which one?
I think, I'm not sure. Which program, Joan? She'll probably type that in a second.
We have started with sustainability for the day in the life. That one is really easy. It's just a matter of getting the students over to the other institutions. We've had some funding from the partner institutions. For instance, Georgia Southern has paid for the charter bus for the students to leave Georgia State and go down to visit Georgia Southern. Georgia Tech has sent vans over. Georgia State is a MARTA trip away. Emory is a MARTA trip. So we've set up those types of things and looking at a budget for sustainability. The Plus A program is a different beast in and of itself. We are working with the foundation to continue that. Actually, this summer, we have asked those institutions that are willing to participate if they would sponsor one student. And so that would give us some sustainability. And it might not be 15 students that we can host after the grant is over, but it then will become more like a fellowship or a scholarship type of activity.
Thank you. We actually have another hand up from Craig Ogilvie. I'm going to unmute you, Craig, so you can share.
Well, thank you, but I actually think I left my hand up there accidentally. But but I have the floor. So we have had a 3-year experience with a very similar research project for community college students at our 4-year university, and it has been successful, I think, on many grants levels. I mean, definitely the individual stories. We have similar surveys about changes in self-efficacy and changes in understanding of what science was compared to just in the textbooks. And I also think we've had very positive responses from the faculty. One thing that we continue to try to do a better job on, but we still are not, I can't claim that we've got it solved, is the mentor training. We're a large Research One university, and quite typically the people who are doing the day-to-day mentoring are graduate students. And so a big component of what we work on before the program is to work with those graduate students. But I've had to say what our biggest problems are on an operational daily basis is projects that aren't well conceived and don't have a mentor that is really in sync with the goals of the program, and gives the student either menial tasks or gives them reading material to do instead of giving them hands-on experience. So those are definitely a minority of the occurrences, but those are our biggest problems.
Well, one thing that we did, because we had some of that going on at the onset, is that and some people, and I know this is big what I'm about to say, I make it a point of visiting the students over at the institution or sending a designee to meet with the students. And so the faculty over at the four-year institutions know that I'm coming or sending a designee to speak to the student about what's going on in the lab. So that's a lot of that is cut down because it's like you don't want anybody to know that you're treating someone badly. So and it is time intensive, but I do send a designee, or there may be a designee over at the four-year institution that comes in and just talks to the student away from the lab, so it's a safe place. So that may help.
All right, thanks for those comments, everybody. We have 3 minutes until our scheduled end time, so I want to give Pamela a chance to finish her presentation, and then people who want to stay later, maybe we can stay and continue the conversation, answer more questions. But if we don't get to answer your questions, we will, during the live webinar, we will definitely address them either through email to you and also post them to our discussion group on Step Central. So we will address your questions somehow.
The challenges and limitations facing a two-year, four-year partnership, these were comments as well from the Step Central site. And so the main ones here are establishing and maintaining data linkages between the two-year and four-year colleges, extreme budget cuts every year, so that means there's loss of support personnel, and most times the faculty and staff that are working are oftentimes burnt out because they've been doing everything. Sustaining the programs at the two-year campuses following the completion of STEP funding, lack of written articulation agreements between us, meaning the two-year institutions, and the programs at the senior institution, and just really the unwelcoming culture on both sides. And so how do we overcome these barriers? And I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, we need to hear, see, and do. So conversations actually do matter. You have to let people know about your successful partnerships. You should engage in clear, concise communication and always have your elevator speech, because you never know when you're talking to somebody and they go, hey, tell me about that program. And so you need to be able to give that program its due in about 2 or 3 minutes. Hear the unwritten rules and biases. Know what you're getting into. Just like, I think it was Craig that mentioned, you know, sometimes the students go over there and they're washing glassware or they're reading literature. Understand the culture before you set up a partnership with someone, because if the cultures aren't similar and you don't think you can change a culture, then that may not be a partnership that you should engage in. Begin conversations surrounding advising challenges for the two-year institutions. That may be your step in the door. And then listen to student and faculty apprehension on both sides of the house regarding the two-year, four-year transfer. I'm sure I would have some things to say about apprehension, and my colleagues over at Georgia State would say the same thing. So what do we need to do then? See, okay, so look for ways to improve the current partnerships, or look at the ineffective institutional interventions and try to do something with those. Make those better. Study the data management plan for both institutions and be ready to share your findings. Once again, exposure. Expose your successful partnership. Look at successful partnerships at similar institutions. Take plenty of pictures so that you can show people, and use your school's website to market the good stuff. People want to know that they can go to Georgia Perimeter College, and even though I'm a two-year STEM major, I can go and do research. And so they want to see those good things. And then leverage existing grant funds at both institutions. I use a mini grant over at Georgia State to pay for some things over here for the students. Encourage bottom up and top down at both institutions. So you have to have everybody engaged. Include staff and counselors and students from both institutions, and make sure that the data flow is bidirectional, interinstitutional, and student and outcome flow. So you want to make sure that everybody that needs to know is in the know. So the last thing is sustaining the partnership. We need to keep in mind that it's really and truly all about the student. And I think if we really focus on this, then some of the challenges and the barriers will go away. We need to remember that students drive the partnership, so the tuition dollars and the state funding, recruitment and retention can be used maybe to sustain the partnership. Those are things that you can go to your state legislators and say, hey, this is a program that's working. We need funds to make sure that we are staying on task with the retention. We need to make sure that the partnership is going to outlast you. You are not the partnership. So even though I'm Pamela and I love going over and talking about the +8 program, I know one day I may not be here. And so if I want that partnership to last, I have to make sure that there are people around me that are like-minded, that are going to continue with that partnership and that vision. I always say start small and plan big. So even though we started with 4 students, I was always thinking this thing is going to grow, this thing is going to grow. And when it grows, what is it going to look like? How much money am I going to have? How much money am I going to need? How am I going to get around to the schools to meet with the students? So start small, but plan big. Invite more students into your, invite more schools, excuse me, into your partnership, because each school may have something different to offer. So even when we go and do a day in the life, Georgia Tech's Day in the Life is going to look very, very different from Emory. So for instance, when we went to Emory this past September, they weren't able to go into a classroom, but they did go into the undergraduate research labs. So you just think about what the other schools may have to offer. Form and sustain a community network. Like Step Central, make sure that you're talking to people about what they've done and what you could do, and then continue to build and maintain the relationships that you have. Use your networking ability, meet new people. So that's all that I have today. I'm sorry, I tried to wrap it up, Tanya. I'm about 3 minutes over, but I do want to have some acknowledgments, obviously, to NSF, the USG mini grant, Procter & Gamble. I can't say enough about Project Kaleidoscope. I'm so happy that everything is coming together, and Project Kaleidoscope will be on STEM Central, because if it really wasn't for the STEM Leadership Summer Institute of 2011, I probably wouldn't have this to talk about. So it's really, if you haven't done it, I would suggest that you just participate. The STEP team, my co-PI, Margaret Major, and the administrative assistant, Naranja, all the students, Dabney Dixon, Alphonse Baumstark over at Georgia State, they are like my lifeline. They really made it happen. And it's also good that they were on my PhD committee, by the way. So it's like taking your kid and just raising them, and they've just done wonderful things. And Keith Oden over at Georgia Tech, I don't know what I would do without him. He just calls and says, "You got any ideas, Pamela?" And I go, "Yeah, this." And he says, "Okay, well, let's make it happen." So you always need people like that on your team. And then just the institutions in Georgia that have really just really reached out and been very helpful to me. And so that's all I have today. Thank you guys for listening. I hope it was refreshing and enlightening and all those other good words.
Oh, it definitely was. I learned so much, and it was great to get so many great questions and comments from our audience. I realize we're about 4 minutes over, so let's understand if you'll have to leave. I just want to give a big thanks to Pamela Leggett-Robinson for taking the time to share your expertise with us and this broader community. And we're open to other folks in the community to sharing their expertise using this webinar format. So please let me know if you'd like to share. And thanks to Kelly Mack for the introduction. If anybody wants to, and the big announcement about STEP Central evolving to STEM Central and addressing the needs of this broader community. So we're really excited about that, and we look forward to all of you at the audience being involved and staying engaged as we grow as a resource. And we do have a few more questions that we can go ahead and answer. We understand if a lot of you need to get going, but why don't we go ahead and answer just this one more question, 2 more questions actually, before we take off. Is that okay, Pamela?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. So Brahmia Srithran, I'm sure I butchered that name, asked, do you take students interested in MTH or science education? I think it might be math or science education.
Math, definitely. Science education, not so much. Simply just the way the grant was written. But if students are interested in science education and we do have openings for some of the activities and some of the trips, then they're more than welcome to go. There's not a lot of schools in Georgia that have a science education program. Georgia State, I think, might be the only one. And I know it's pretty large, so, and that's actually one of the schools that we do not go visit.
Okay, great, thanks. And then Michelle Hamlet asked through the chat. She asks, I manage a program that is based on 2-year, 4-year partnerships, and most of the grantee schools are the 4-year.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that could be set up for a non-mutually beneficial partnership?
I think it can be.
Be a setup, I'm sorry. Do you think that could be a setup for a non-mutually beneficial partnership?
Yes, I think it can be. It doesn't have to be, but oftentimes the 2-year institution feels like we're sending you our students and we get no credit for sending you the students. So I always say it's best to, if you have a grant, it is truly best to sit down and have a real communication, a very transparent communication about what each institution can benefit from with the grant. As I said, with Georgia Perimeter and our sister institutions, since we are both being funded the same way, it kind of levels the playing field. So everybody needs to graduate and retain and graduate. I hope that helps.
Okay. Well, if there's more questions for Pamela, please send them in at Step Central in the working group. I showed you the resource where the webinar will be posted. So we have a recording that will be posted for you, and within there you may ask questions, or you can also email me and I'll pass them along to Pamela as well. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pamela, for the presentation. Thanks to Kelly for her wonderful announcement, and to all of you who attended. And we'll see you at the next webinar on Steps to be STEM Central. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.